it's my pleasure to introduce Governor Tom Wolf.
Thank you, Sarah. So thank you, everybody, for being here today, and thank all the folks from the agencies who are here today. I really appreciate your taking the time to join us. Currently, as many of you probably already know, models are predicting the first significant winter storm in nearly a year. It's going to hit Pennsylvania tomorrow and somewhat into Thursday. Some areas have the potential to see more than 1 foot of snowfall. The Commonwealth's emergency preparedness teams have spent a great deal of time and energy, as you know, over the last several months supporting all kinds of efforts to mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic and to help the Commonwealth weather this public health emergency. The Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency in particular is hosting 2 ongoing emergency response efforts for both the opioid epidemic and the COVID-19 pandemic. But PEMA's role as the agency that helps guide counties through contingency planning and emergency preparedness is a forward-thinking one. And the group of people here speaking to you today never lost sight of the preparations that we always have to make around this time of the year to deal with the season's winter weather. So I want to thank the employees of each of these agencies that are represented here today for all the hard work that you and your team members do. In addition, the Pennsylvania National Guard, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Public Utility Commission, and many other agencies not here today deserve thanks for their work to keep the Commonwealth prepared for whatever comes our way. When winter weather threatens your dedication, speaking now to all the agency employees, your dedication helps keep your fellow Pennsylvanians safe. And this is true every year, but it's more important now because we're in the middle of this pandemic. This public health crisis. The work that these employees, these folks tirelessly do to keep roads safe and clear to respond swiftly to emergencies and accidents and to keep Pennsylvanians safe and informed, that helps our frontline healthcare workers, and especially those who are working to try to keep us safe from the COVID virus. They get to work because these roads are safe, because all these agencies are working together to keep our highways open. So they get to work and continue to do the jobs that protect all of us from the public health threats like COVID-19. So I want to reassure all Pennsylvanians that the Commonwealth is prepared for this storm. PEMA, the Pennsylvania State Police, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, all have pulled together to address the challenges winter weather brings year in and year out, and this year is no different from any other. That task is particularly crucial this week and this year, as you all know, because this week, the first doses of a COVID-19 vaccine are being distributed throughout the Commonwealth. That's happening as we speak. This week, Pennsylvania received 97,500 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for 66 of our 67 counties. In Philadelphia County, Philadelphia is one of 6 cities in the United States that received help directly from the federal government. They got an additional allotment of 13,650 doses of the vaccine. The 97,500 doses that went to the 66 counties outside of Philadelphia will be distributed to many hospitals in the coming days. In fact, that's already started. Inoculations have already started, so that we can quickly continue the work of inoculating our frontline healthcare workers and other vulnerable populations. Every agency involved in winter weather preparedness has a role to play in helping to ensure that vaccine distributions proceed smoothly and safely in the coming days. And our team is ready to work collaboratively to address any issues that arise with vaccine transport and distribution. Representatives from each of these agencies are here to tell you more about how their teams are preparing for the storm. But first, I want to remind you that there's actually something simple that every single Pennsylvanian can do to help us all get through this storm as quickly as possible, and that is stay home if you can. When fewer people are on the road during the winter storm emergency, personnel can work faster and they can do their jobs more safely. So please, if you can, stay home during this storm while crews are out clearing the roadways. So thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency Director, Randy PADFIELD. Randy.
Thank you, Governor Wolf, and good afternoon, everyone. When winter weather strikes, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency takes a number of steps, as Governor Wolf indicated, to plan and coordinate any response needed to potential impacts from a storm with other state agencies, county level government, the private sector, and other stakeholders as needed. In fact, the planning for the current storm that will impact the state tomorrow started a number of days ago when we had first indication that there was actually going to be a significant impact to the state. Over the past number of years, under the governor's leadership, our agency has worked with agencies represented here today to analyze the data from incidents that resulted in significant travel disruptions and extended road closures during inclement winter weather in order to better understand the factors that contribute to those situations. These efforts have resulted in the development of a number of processes and procedures to significantly limit the potential of large multi-vehicle collisions, which usually result in the roadway being closed for multiple hours, and respond effectively and efficiently should incidents occur to reestablish the traffic flow and lessen the possibility of motorists being stranded on the road for hours on end. An example of these initiatives is the travel restriction and ban framework that limits or restricts certain types of vehicles for times during high impact storms to prevent large multi-vehicle collisions. This all requires coordinated planning and execution through the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center, working with the other agencies represented here. And over the years has resulted in significant decreases in the number of accidents on interstate highways that close the roadways for hours, strand motorists, and potentially impact their safety. Each storm system has its own set of complexities that need to be taken into consideration, which may require adjustments to plans or procedures. This system is no different. And add to that the complexities of dealing with a storm system in a normal response in a COVID environment as well adds complexity to just about any response operation. Tomorrow's storm is no different, and the fact that it's occurring during the first week's distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine, as the governor indicated, to hospitals throughout the Commonwealth. PEMA has worked with the Department of Health, who is receiving information from Operation Warp Speed at the federal level regarding scheduled vaccine shipments to assess the impacts the storm will have on this planned distribution. Using this information, our agency will be able to coordinate with other state agencies, the National Guard, county or local governments, or any other stakeholders as needed to provide the support to ensure the vaccine makes it to its final destination. This type of focused planning is not unfamiliar to PEMA or the state agencies represented here today. We've used this during other disasters to be able to deliver certain other things as well. Within recent years, this type of planning was used to coordinate the transfer of a critically ill child with a congenital heart defect from an outlying hospital in the Poconos to a specialty hospital with a higher level of care that was capable of caring for the child during a significant winter storm that left the roadways impassable in many areas. That operation was able to be successfully executed in a very short period of time because of the processes and procedures that we use regularly for these types of situations. The vaccine distribution will be no different. Tomorrow's approach will be no different. The Commonwealth Response Coordination Center will be activated and staffed with the needed personnel to support any contingency needed during the storm, whether it be responding to an accident that involves an extended interstate closure or ensuring that the COVID-19 vaccine is delivered to its final destination. Now I'd like to turn it over to Major Bruce Williams from the Pennsylvania State Police to discuss their agency's role during inclement winter weather. Thank you.
Thank you, Director PADFIELD. As stated, I'm Major Bruce Williams, the Director of Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Patrol Operations. The primary function of the Pennsylvania State Police during a weather event is to keep traffic flowing on the highways, to respond to collisions and motorists in need of assistance, and to continue to respond to all other emergency calls that do not stop because of a snowstorm. There are three main things that the public can do to help PSP and other first responders during a significant snowstorm. First, as stated by the governor, keep yourself and first responders safely by staying at home and not traveling unless absolutely necessary. If you must travel, slow down and increase the following distance. And the third thing is to use 911 to report a police, a fire, or a medical emergency. The Pennsylvania State Police will have a representative in the Commonwealth's Response Coordination Center working with our partners to get resources to where they need to go. These are certainly trying times, and we must all do our part, especially when it comes to keeping each other safe. As stated earlier, the COVID vaccine is being distributed. Anything you can do to ensure safe travel to the hospitals will provide a benefit for all of us. Thank you for your time and stay safe. Now I'll turn it over to PennDOT Deputy Secretary Melissa Latula.
Thank you, Major. And I thank everyone for the opportunity to be with you today. So as Governor Wolf shared, the most important message I can share with you today is to stay home unless travel is absolutely necessary. Less vehicles on the roads allows our teams to focus on keeping those roads open for critical movements, not only for the movement of the vaccine, but also our emergency responders, medical professions, and those needing these services. So at PennDOT, we've been preparing for this winter since the last one ended. We're responsible for more than 95,000 miles of snow lane miles across the entire state. So that's more than all the New England states combined. But of course, as we know, every storm is different. But our 4,700 on-the-road crew members are prepared. As in any storm, we always prioritize our higher traffic roadways so that vehicles that must travel can do so as safely as possible and maintain access to our health facilities. We will do everything in our power before and during this storm to ensure that the vaccine deliveries get where they need to go. We have the ability to move staff and resources if necessary due to the storm or for an incident. In every storm, our staff must monitor equipment, traffic, and weather, and all sorts of conditions, and of course, at all hours. As in other years, as Randy mentioned, we will be using a tiered approach to vehicle restrictions and communicating with the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association for any planned truck restrictions. As I mentioned, we need the public's health in order to manage winter weather. One positive point in the pandemic world is that we have learned that teleworking is often feasible and sometimes preferred, and we always encourage people to avoid travel during winter weather if we can. If you must travel, please allow plenty of space to snowplow operators so they can perform their jobs safely and effectively. We also remind motorists that during winter weather events, the department's goal is to keep the roads passable, not completely free of snow and ice. The heavier the traffic or the snowfall, the longer our plow routes may be to take to complete. And with each storm, we will continue to treat roadways throughout the storm until roads are clear. As in all storms, we continue to urge our public to use our 511pa.com website to make travel decisions. In addition to 1,000 traffic cameras and roadway alerts, winter roadway conditions are available for major highways. When we implement vehicle and speed restrictions, they can also be found on the 511 system. It also shows when all state roads were last plowed and where our vehicles are at that moment in time. We assure you that PennDOT is dedicated to your safety throughout this storm and beyond. So now I'm going to turn to our next presenter, who will be Craig Shuey, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission.
Thank you, Secretary Vatula. Being last, I'll just reiterate what my colleagues have said. We do prepare for winter almost all year round. Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission has been stocking its salt inventories, managing its plow trucks, and training its operators throughout the year to prepare for this. This is our first major storm of the year, and certainly to start with one of such significance is unique for Pennsylvania. But we hope that motorists will work with us, will follow the rules as far as slowing down and paying attention to their distance between other vehicles. It's amazing how critical that one element can be in terms of managing roadway operations. If everybody can behave together, we can keep the roads plowed and we can keep the system free flowing. We are, like others, impacted by COVID, but there are no major incidents across our system that will limit our ability to be out on the road. So you will see us operating our system in plow trains. When you come across those plow trains, we ask that you not interfere with them or try to pass them. That can create very dangerous situations for both your safety and that of the operators of those vehicles. We have pre-staged towing services across the system. So if you find yourself in a situation where your vehicle has become disabled and is blocking a traffic lane and you can't move it to the side yourself, please call *11 on the Turnpike system to ensure that we dispatch one of those towing companies to help get you out of the roadway. And please work with the Pennsylvania State Police and the Turnpike operators who are out there to help clear that roadway as quickly as possible. It really makes a huge difference in terms of our ability to continue to operate if we can clear that scene as quickly as possible. Just to reiterate on 511, that will be your best source of information for what is occurring on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So please download it before you leave and make sure you know what the route looks like for you as you travel forward. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Governor Tom Wolf.
Okay, so Sarah, you want to moderate the questions?
Yes, sir. Thanks to all of our speakers. Thank you, Governor. And our first question is from Flora Pastorero from PennWatch. You should be able to unmute, Flora.
Thank you. Governor, question for you. Was there a specific plan in place to send the vaccine to certain hospitals tomorrow? And are you deviating from that plan if some of those hospitals were in a particular hard hit area where the storm maybe was expected to dump 2 feet of snow? Are you making changes based on the forecast of where the vaccine's going to go tomorrow?
No, we're not making changes according to the forecast, but we will make changes if the weather turns out to force us to make those changes. But at this point, I don't know of any changes that we've made in the forecast. Maybe Randy, are you aware of any?
Sure, Governor, I can take that. Most of the distribution is actually driven by Operation Warp Speed. So they actually have the distribution. Department of Health will get those shipments about a day before they are released. And then we will know the destinations that they were going to. It is our understanding, working with Department of Health at Operation Warp Speed, that actually all the shippers have a contingency plan in place for severe weather. So they have the ability to be able to hold the shipment if it's unsafe to be able to travel. However, we have the ability to be able to also, at the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center, route them the best way to be able to get to their destination, because we have all the state agencies there. We have the best read on road conditions. So there are no changes to the plan right now. We will work obviously through the state agencies if anything comes up, that we need to adjust any of that distribution, and work with Operation Warp Speed at the federal level.
And if I could just follow up, you had mentioned about potential vehicle restrictions. If you know a vaccine is headed towards a particular area, will you restrict travel to that hospital to get the vaccine where it needs to go if conditions become very bad?
And Governor, I can take that as well. And that's a very good question. We have a number of exemptions that are built into those travel restrictions, and those travel restrictions are tiered. So there are certain things that we don't, or there are certain things that we do exempt within those restrictions. And the whole reason for the restrictions is to really decrease the amount of traffic that is on the roadway. We found that is a very effective means to be able to minimize the amount of incidents that occur, and especially the larger incidents that occur during inclement weather, winter weather. So we would not restrict those types of shipments if we were looking to put restrictions in the areas that they were due to be delivered.
Thank you, Director Padfield. Next up, we have Jen Rehill from WLVR. Jen, you should be able to unmute.
There we go. Hi, thank you. So the first question is for the governor, and then I have a follow-up for Secretary Padfield. Governor, do you have any idea how many vaccines are already on the road right now, and how many may be in the process of delivery during this winter storm?
As far as I know, what left Michigan actually over the weekend headed for Pennsylvania was 97,500. I'm not sure if all of them have arrived, and then 13,650 going directly to Philadelphia in addition to that. So about 110,000. How many have already arrived? I can't answer that question. Maybe Randy, do you know the answer to that?
Sure, Governor, I can take that. So what we know is that there were a small number of deliveries made on Monday and today. Tomorrow, from what we're being told right now, working with the Department of Health, is that there's about 7 or 8 deliveries, and there is a larger number of deliveries that are slated actually for Thursday. We don't have the information on those just yet. And literally, it is coming off the production line, is going through a quality assurance check. And that's why there's a very short lead time on some of the information on quantities and where they're going. It's been planned out. It's in their master tracking system. So it will be, the first shipment will be started on Monday, as the governor indicated, and it will conclude for the first week shipment on Thursday.
Great, thank you. Secretary Padfield, you had mentioned contingency planning for vaccine delivery. I'm wondering if that involves the National Guard, if there would be a plan to helicopter vaccines around. I'm just wondering what those contingency plans might look like.
That's another good question. So the contingency plans essentially would be potentially using the National Guard. We actually work with them on a regular basis. We've actually conducted planning with them, and we will be bringing a number of National Guard on to be able to assist with the storm. They're usually the ready resource for us, and they work extremely well for us in these types of situations. We probably would not have to go to the extent of helicoptering vaccine in. Much of this vaccine is able to be kept in even though it's ultra cold, the way it is packaged and shipped, it can be kept in that situation for an extended period of time. If we would get into a situation where we would have to recharge it with dry ice, we have the ability to be able to identify dry ice providers that we could use to be able to recharge it. But ultimately, the goal would be to try to get the vaccine to its end point. Obviously, there's going to be some challenges that even when we get it to the end point, some of the hospital and healthcare systems, depending on where it's going, may be impacted and not have the people to be able to inoculate because of the winter weather not being able to get them in. But we plan for all contingencies, and that's the beauty of having all of the other state agencies, and Department of Health will be with us. We've been partners in this response for COVID for a long time. So having them next to us as well, we'll be able to make very good informed decisions on what the best course of action happens to be with dealing with any impediments we may come across tomorrow.
Thank you, Director Padfield. Up next, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, we have Michaela Drapak from ABC 27. You should be able to unmute.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about travel restrictions and see if there are any specific road closures ahead of time that are happening.
Again, Randy, that sounds like a good question for you.
Sure, I can handle that. So we actually just came out of a meeting, many of us that are on this press conference, to discuss that. So information should be coming out shortly on what we believe will be the restrictions. And again, it's a tiered restriction approach. So it's really taking a look at a lot of the variables and the timing of the storm and the timing of the impacts, especially to the roadway. So more information will be coming out in the near future regarding the timing of those restrictions and where those restrictions will be in place.
Melissa, do you want to add anything to that?
Governor, I think Director Padfield handled that well. Other than the first restriction you usually see is speed limit restrictions. The first response is to make sure we slow down those speeds during those storm events, and then we increase from there. Thank you.
Craig, you want to add anything, Craig?
Sure. Just that from what we were reported, the heaviest snow is going to hit about 2 hours after the first flakes fly. So you can expect that that's something we're going to be watching very carefully to see. Once we've started snow, we're going to get into some pretty heavy stuff soon after that.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig. Next up, we have Jamie Martinez from Spotlight PA. Go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, thanks. Governor Wolf, this question is for you. Yesterday was the first time I think the media saw a list of hospitals that are receiving this first round of the vaccine that'll be going out by the 21st. I'm curious, how are you going to be thinking about rural areas, hospitals and healthcare facilities that are located in rural areas? I understand that much of this is laid out in the plan, but especially in light of some of the winter weather we're going to be getting and other challenges that might arise, how are you going to make sure that these facilities that are in more far-flung areas of the state do get these vaccines, get them on time, and aren't left out of the process?
Well, the original plan does not have the contingency of the weather in it, so the weather will determine any changes that are made to that schedule. But I'm not sure, Randy, do you want to talk about the schedule that we hope we will be able to adhere to as this vaccine comes into the state?
Sure. I think the key is once we know where the vaccine, which hub it's coming into or where it's coming into the state and where it needs to go, we can actually work to be able to execute that. And we've gotten to the point where the incident that I briefed on in my opening remarks regarding, moving a critically ill child, that took multiple layers of government working together, PennDOT, state police, to be able to get plow trains together and those types of things, and then good roadway condition reports of what was open and what wasn't open to essentially get that child from an outlying facility that did not have the capability of taking care of them to a facility that had the capability. So, using that type of premise, we have the ability to be able to do that with a vaccine as well if it gets to that level. So the goal is really, even in the rural areas, we would have a good understanding working with our county emergency management agencies and even some of the local jurisdictions to be able to figure out what the road conditions are, what is passable, what isn't passable. And, we may have to reroute and use roads that are passable, or we may have to get resources to be able to make sure those roads are passable by the time that delivery gets there. So there are a number of options that we have available.
And if I could just follow up, I know you've both said that much of this distribution depends on Operation Warp Speed. Are you confident that they'll hold up their end of the deal, especially if we're dealing with unforeseen circumstances like weather?
Let me just start with when you say they're part of the deal, they are. I've been convinced that they have done a pretty good job of getting us to this point. We don't know exactly how much the vaccine is going to get to us and how quickly. We've been assured of the 96,500, and Philadelphia is getting theirs. And then next week, I think we start to get the Moderna shipment. At this point, we don't know how much of that Pennsylvania is supposed to get. So there's a lot of uncertainty before you even get into the weather in terms of what Operation Warp Speed is promising and what they're going to deliver and how quickly. The hope is that we can have 500,000 or so vaccines before the end of December, maybe more, maybe less. It depends on how this all works out at each of the manufacturing facilities. And then you throw into all of this uncertainty the weather. So, Randy, maybe you can add to that, elaborate on that.
Sure, Governor, I'd be happy to. So, we have no reason to believe that, Operation Warp Speed can't be able to produce. When you take a look at what they have done to this, date to be able to get the vaccine out and get it through the approval process and everything else is truly remarkable. So the goal is not to have any vaccine that is unusable, and we really want to get it to the end point. And there are, like I said, there are a number of mechanisms in place to be able to make sure that happens. However, they have been very realistic with us in all of the coordination calls with Department of Health and our agency that, because of how rapid this is being rolled out, there's probably going to be some level of crisis action planning that's going to need to occur in certain circumstances. And it may be changes in numbers, and the Secretary of Health can talk to this, and she probably already has, is that we've been quoted different numbers for the first week and things like that. It takes a while to land some of that information because what they're giving us really is their first thinking. They're not giving us everything because everything is happening so fast. So there are going to be some adjustments in between, but as long as we have the mechanisms in place to be able to deal with those adjustments and we have all the right players and stakeholders there, we can make the informed decisions we need to be able to adjust course at any point in time.
Thank you, Director Padfield. Our next and final reporter for today is Jan Murphy from Penn Live. Bit of feedback.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jan. I think it's better. Yes.
Okay. I have two questions, and one is for folks that can talk about the PennDOT personnel with the surge in cases that we've seen in COVID in the state. I was wondering, PennDOT, are they assured that they have enough drivers to clear the roads, and are there any concerns about shortage of personnel as a result of the number of COVID cases that we've seen? Hello.
Hello, I think anybody's still there, Melissa?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't fully hear the question. If it was regarding our staffing regarding this, this is a full state impact. So all of our staff are going to be out with the result of this storm. We do have the ability, we are going to be shifting some of our staff from the northeast part of the state, which I'll say is getting less hits than some of the more, I'll say the bullseye areas, if you will, from the Harrisburg, really the I-81 corridor, and mobilizing staff to assist with those efforts. So we do have some of that in process right now. We've been planning through that. And I apologize if there was more to that question. I was getting so much feedback. I didn't really catch the question itself.
Okay, that's fine. And I also was wondering if some are questioning Pennsylvania's readiness for the vaccine distribution in light of the challenges.
You're cutting out, Jan.
We did lose you a little bit there, Jan. Just invited you to unmute again. Hopefully you can answer. Go ahead.
Okay. Some are questioning Pennsylvania's readiness to distribute the vaccine in light of the challenges that we had with testing. And I was wondering what you can say to folks to ensure that enough planning has been done on that front, particularly as it relates to our long-term care facility residents and staff.
Well, let me start. I think actually we've been spending a lot of time. There are uncertainties. There's no question about it. We are at the mercy of the weather. We're at the mercy of the manufacturers and their quality control, and they send us at their schedule. I misspoke. It wasn't 96. That's 97,500 vaccines that we're due to get this week from Pfizer. We're due to get a whole batch next week. I think in terms of what we know, Pennsylvania has done a good job of making sure that the vaccines get out. I know hospitals have already started inoculating members of their staff, and that should continue throughout the days from now on until we reach the number of people who want to have the vaccine. So I think Pennsylvania is in a position to do a really good job of this. And what we're trying to do today is say, even if bad weather hits, we're still going to do a good job. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Hey, Governor, I can hop in real quick. So, the long-term care facilities specifically that were in question, that is actually going to be activated through the Federal Pharmacy Partnership Program. And they will actually, through their contracts at the federal level, be inoculating the folks in the long-term care facilities. But as the governor alluded to, there are some, there are unknowns and then there are unknown unknowns. And sometimes we deal with that. So we look at those plans and say, okay, the planning assumption is that the federal government will be able to come in through that pharmacy partnership program and inoculate the folks in the long-term care facilities. Ultimately, our agency looks at those plans, works with Department of Health, and they say, okay, what happens if this occurs, or they need additional resources to be able to do this, or they need additional support to be able to do that. And then we look at that and again, go back to adjusting course and providing the resources where they're needed to be able to make sure things happen in an organized, efficient manner. So no plan ever goes off as it's written in paper. We understand that. And there are some times where they need to be adjusted or modified. We've looked at doing that throughout the entire COVID response as we've seen the evolution of the data and the information. And this will be no different during this phase with the rollout of the vaccine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Padfield. That is all the time we have today. Thank you, Governor Wolf. Thank you, Director Padfield. Thank you, Major Williams, Melissa Batula, Craig Shuey. We really appreciate everyone's time and information today. Thank you to our reporters for your questions. And especially today and over the next few days, everyone stay safe. Thank you. Melissa Batula, Craig Shuey. We really appreciate everyone's time and information.